John's disciples told him about all these things. So the healing of the centurion's slave, the raising of the dead woman's son, and the other healings and miraculous signs that Jesus has been performing. John is in prison at this point, so he can't go out and about any longer, but his disciples still can, so they come in and tell him about all this. Calling two of them, he said, he sent them to the Lord to ask, "Are you the one who was to come, or should we expect someone else?" So John the Baptist has been... Now, John the Baptist was very gung-ho about Jesus being the one when he came up out of the river having baptized him and all that. He was very clear about that. And at the beginning of Jesus' ministry, when John was still free, he was still he said, this guy has to rise up and I have to sink down. He has to become more, I have to become less. But now that he's been in prison for a while, and things aren't happening the way he thought they would happen, he's starting to grumble and have doubts. When the men came to Jesus, they said, "John the Baptist sent us to you to ask, are you the one who was to come, or should we expect someone else?" At that very time, Jesus cured many who had diseases, sicknesses, and evil spirits, and gave sight to many who were blind. So he replied to the messengers, "Go back and report to John what you have seen and heard. The blind receive sight, the lame walk, those who have leprosy are cured, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the good news is preached to the poor." But what he doesn't say is that the captives are set free. Because it's not in the plan for John the Baptist to get out of jail. He's going to have to stay there and die there. So he's not getting out of prison. So the captives aren't being set free, not in this case. "Blessed is the man who does not fall away on account of me." So Jesus knows that John is getting restless and discouraged in prison. And he's saying, hey, you're not getting out of prison. Okay? These things are happening, and these are good things that are happening. They're not going to happen to you, but don't fall away on account of me. Stay strong to the end, and you'll be blessed. After John's messengers left, Jesus began to speak to the crowd about John. "What did you go out into the desert to see? A reed swayed by the wind? If not, what did you go out to see? A man dressed in fine clothes?" That'd be, of course, a king, Herod, the guy who imprisoned John. No. Now, by the way, Herod's symbol on his coins was a reed swaying in the wind. That was actually Herod's symbol. So he's referring to Herod in both of these questions are a reference. The reed swaying in the wind, of course, can have the idea of something that gets blown around by the wind, as opposed to someone like John, who stands strong and straight and sturdy even in high winds. But both of these images actually go back to Herod. No. Those who wear expensive clothes and indulge in luxury are in palaces, like Herod, for example. "But what did you go out to see? A prophet? Yes, I tell you, and more than a prophet. This is the one about whom it is written, I will send my messenger ahead of you, who will prepare your way before you." That's in Malachi chapter 3. We've already read that passage several times as we've read through the Gospel, so we're not going to read it again now. But Jesus clearly identifies him as this figure who is to come, who is also identified as Elijah, the one who is to come and prepare the way for the Lord. Not literally Elijah. He is not Elijah reincarnated. He is not Elijah sent back down from heaven. But he is carrying forward, as the angel Gabriel himself said in Luke 1, he is carrying forward in the spirit and power of Elijah. "I tell you, among those born of women, there is no one greater than John the Baptist. Yet the one who is least in the kingdom of God is greater than he is." John the Baptist will not live to see the church established. He will die before the new covenant comes into effect. And he is the greatest of all the prophets that came up to that point. From all the ones that we read, all the ones who have names that have books in the Bible named after them, and even all the ones like Elijah who don't have books in the Bible named after them, none of them was as great as John the Baptist. But even the least in the church, the kingdom that is to come, the kingdom that Jesus is here to establish, which will be established after John's death, will be greater than he. So everyone will have the opportunity to have this spiritual insight that the prophets of old had, and they wanted to have it. Jesus will say elsewhere that these prophets wanted to know the things that the people of Jesus' generation and following, like us today, get to know. The prophets spoke this message but didn't understand it. John spoke this message but didn't fully understand it, and they wanted to. They longed to see it, but they didn't get to. John's not going to get to. So those who are in the kingdom get to experience that. That's a privilege. That's something to be pleased about. It's not to say that they're left out in the cold. Okay, they're going to be in God's eternal kingdom too. But while they were living on earth, they didn't get to see the fulfillment of their message or understand what it really meant. All the people, even the tax collectors, when they heard Jesus' words, acknowledged that God's way was right, or that God was justified, because they had been baptized by John. But the Pharisees and the experts in the law rejected God's purpose for themselves, because they had not been baptized by John. So back to Jesus' words here. To what then, because that was like a little parenthetical insert by the author, Luke. Now back to Jesus' words. To what then can I compare the people of this generation, those who had not been baptized by John, or even some of those who had and didn't really understand what he was doing or why? Because not everyone who got baptized by John would end up becoming a follower of Jesus. The early followers of Jesus were also originally followers of John to a large degree, but not everyone who got baptized by John would end up becoming a follower of Jesus. And of course, some of them didn't get baptized by John. So Jesus says, to what then can I compare the people of this generation? What are they like? They are like children sitting in the marketplace and calling out to each other. We played the flute for you, but you didn't dance. We sang a dirge, but you didn't cry. So it's like this version of Simon Says. Simon says, we're playing the flute. Simon says to dance. You're supposed to dance, but you didn't dance. We're pretending that we're crying. We're singing a dirge. You're supposed to cry, pretend to cry, play act crying, but you didn't do that. So it's like you're not willing to play the game. And that's what he's comparing these children to. Children who are complaining that you're not playing the game according to the rules. For John the Baptist came neither eating nor drinking. So he was a faster. He was a fire and brimstone fasting sort of preacher. And you said about him, he has a demon. The Son of Man came eating and drinking. So he's just a feaster. He wants to have a feast. He wants to have a party. He wants to get as many people as possible to come to his party. But you say about him, he was a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. So no matter what you get, no matter what approach the God's person takes, whether it's a fasting approach or the feasting approach, you're going to complain. You're not going to follow it. You're going to find some reason to complain about it. Just like these children who find some reason to complain about the other kids who aren't playing their game. But wisdom is proved right by all her actions. So in the end, what Paul says that in 1 Corinthians. We speak of 1 Corinthians 2, verse 6. We speak a message of wisdom among the mature, but not the wisdom of this age, or the rulers of this age who are coming to nothing. We speak of God's secret wisdom, the wisdom that's been hidden and that God destined for our glory before time began. None of the rulers of this age understood it, for if they had, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. And before that, in chapter 1, he says, the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to those who are being saved, it's the power of God. For it's written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, the intelligence of the intelligent I will frustrate. Where is the wise man? Where is the scholar? Where is the philosopher of this age? Now they'd be in Corinth, by the way. Those kinds of people would be in the kinds of places that Paul has been going to and is writing letters to. Has not God made the foolish the wisdom of this world? For since in the wisdom of God the world through its wisdom did not know him, God was pleased through the foolishness of what was preached to save those who believe. Jews demand miraculous signs, and Greeks look for wisdom. But we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to Jews and foolishness to Gentiles. But to those whom God has called, both Jew and Gentile, Christ is the power of God and the wisdom of God. For the foolishness of God is wiser than man's wisdom, and the weakness of God is stronger than man's strength. And Jesus says wisdom is proved right by her actions. Remember how I read Proverbs? The first 2 chapters of Proverbs are all about wisdom, and it personifies wisdom as an individual, as a female, actually, speaking about God's endowing her wisdom with all these traits. In the time between the Testaments, wisdom became seen as kind of like an alternate version of God, and Jesus is therefore applying that to himself and saying, I'll be proven right by my actions. Now, one of the Pharisees invited Jesus to have dinner with him. This is an account that's only in the Gospel of Luke. I think I should make this its own video, actually.